Okay, so let's start. So in the last session, we discussed. We started with the concept of the top-down parsing. So in which we have to start with our start symbol of the grammar, and we have to expand the start symbol on the right hand side. I mean, by using the right hand side of form of the grammar, and subsequently we reach towards a leaf where we'll get the sequence of our the generated tokens here. But we have also seen in the process of the top-down parsing, generally backtracking is required. So the issues which we discussed earlier, that if someone has to see that that if someone wants to construct the efficient top-down parser, so when this efficient terms comes in the construction of the top-down parser, so the first question, or I should say, the only question that needs to get resolved, that which production should be used for further expansion. Whenever I'm getting some multiple decisions, I stuck in some multiple decisions. So if your top-down parser is, answering such questions, that which productions should be used for further expansion, so that that should take me to the end of the generated tokens which I am supposed to parse, then my parser is efficient enough. But if the parser says that I am not pretty sure, use this set of production rules, you may end up in successfully ending, in parsing the input stream, or you may not. And if you may not, you need to backtrack and you need to select some other set of production rules, and then you have to restart the processing from that point here. So obviously the later part is not required. So we have to learn that what are the powerful parsers and what are the less powerful parsers, which should completely eliminate the backtracking concept and should give you the unique answer that this is the production that is going to work out. You do not need to focus on other productions here. So for that, we first just learn the first function, that is the first set calculation, which actually facilitate us in determining the first set of tokens deriving from the right hand side, the production rules here. Fine. So we saw this example that how to calculate the first set of the given grammar here. Now, today we'll try to generalize few more concepts related to the first set calculation, and we'll see the first parser, how to design that parser, how to implement that parser, and how to actually parse the input string based on that underlying parser. So this was what we captured. We were capturing what we are discussing last time here. Fine. So now let's proceed further. So calculation of first sets here. Let's summarize this point because we stopped at this point. So first set says that if this guy is this P is a token or a terminal symbol, then obviously the first of P has to be always the P itself. Fine. This is the token, this is the terminal. So the first set of tokens which are supposed to be derived from this has to be this guy here. I think no confusion up to this point. Similarly, if my grammar rule is of the form like this, if some production rule is deriving epsilon symbol, then obviously I'll say in that case, if I compute the first of P, then I know that the first set of token which is derived by the right hand side of the production rule is nothing but null symbol, that is the epsilon thing here. Fine. And now moving forward for the calculation of the first sets, if we have if some P is a non-terminal such that P is deriving this set of rules here, this set of complete alpha here, which says Q1 followed by Q2 followed by Q3 up to Qk, is some sort of a production here. Find some long right hand side production rules. Then we have also covered the, if you remember, we have seen such case earlier. So how to go for this? So there are certain things which we are going to generalize in that case. So we'll say that if for some I mean, out of these Q1 to Qk, if there is some I whose first of Qi is equivalent to X and epsilon is in all of first of Qj here. Fine. So I'm saying this is my Qj, this is my Qj, and let's suppose this is my I here. And his first set is giving me as per this example, is giving me X, and these guys are giving me epsilon here. I mean, both these. Then in that case, I mean, that's why we are mentioning here that the J should be less than I. I mean, all J's here. So in that case, I'll say that the first of P has to be X itself, because this guy is not deriving the epsilon. Fine. This is what we saw earlier also. I mean, if we came across such set of production rules here. On the other hand, if we have, I mean, such thing that if epsilon is in first of Q1 to Q first of Qk, I mean, these all guys are deriving epsilon, if say, like 6. Then in that case, the first of P has to be epsilon, because except epsilon, they are not deriving any other. I mean, the first token is simply the epsilon itself. So we have just generalized the things which we have discussed in the last session. I mean, related to the calculation of the first sets here. Any question up to this point, guys? Fine. So let us take, before moving further, few examples so that things would be, very much clear here. So this is one form of the generalized grammar where S, B, C, and the non-terminals. And these are my terminal symbol, where P is the set of these production rules and S is the start symbol of my grammar here. So if someone will ask you that how to calculate the first of S, so you must say that S is deriving two production rules. So one is first of S is, let's say I'll write here in short FT for first. I'll say first of BB here. And first of BB, I know that it is first of B here minus epsilon, right? So first of B, as I can say, the first token or the first sum in terminal symbol is deriving A here. And simply it is also deriving B epsilon here. So I'll simply replace it with the epsilon here. And finally, I need first of BB now will become the first of simply this terminal B here, and which will say I'm also equal to B here. So which implies that the first of S right now is including these guys. Fine, and I do not need to include the epsilon symbol right now for the first of S. Similarly, I'll say that the first of S is nothing but first of C. And first of C is again first of CC, fine, minus I should say this epsilon symbol. And again, I know this particular thing is C here, and I have to also replace it with the epsilon. And finally, I am getting the D here. So first of S will become this A, B union C, D. Similarly, first of B, we have already evaluated, that is A as well as epsilon. First of C, this small c as well as epsilon here. I mean, in front of you. Guys, any problem, any question up to this point related to the first set calculation? What are the set of the tokens, first set of the tokens, which are derivable by these guys? That we are determining, so that later on we can take certain parsing decisions here. Let's take a few more examples. I mean, S is deriving here ACB, also CBA, and also BA here. So first of S is first of, first of S is equivalent to first of, I say here ACB. And first of ACB is nothing but first of all, first of A minus epsilon. Fine. So first of A is simply deriving D here, as of now, fine. And first of A is also equivalent to first of B here, fine. So first of B is obviously G and epsilon. So I'll replace it with the epsilon and I'll also include the G guy here. And first of C is also deriving the H here. So first of C is also replaced with the epsilon. So the whole will become epsilon and A is deriving epsilon. So that means this guy has to come inside this. And now again, I'll go further that first of C. So for that, I'll just eliminate that because I have to determine this guy. So first of C is again H as well as epsilon. So H is already in there in my set. I'll also replace it with epsilon here. And finally, first of B is giving me G, but it is also giving me the epsilon here. So I'll mention the epsilon in the last part. And similarly, first of S is also equivalent to this first of CBB here. And first of C here again is H as well as epsilon. Fine. So H is already in my set. So I'll say I'll replace with the epsilon. And next is first of BB. And first of BB is always B here. So I'll not simply go for epsilon here right now. Similarly, I have this guy also. So first of S is equivalent to first of this BA, and first of B, as we know, is G and epsilon. So epsilon I'll simply write, and G is already in there in my set. So I'll say this is my final picture. So I'll also include the A guy here. I hope this is clear. And similarly, you can go for this guy. So D, G, H, epsilon, BA, these all guys will come in the first of S here. Fine, guys. Any problem related to the calculation sets? Calculation of the first sets here. Anything? If you have not understood, please let me know. Fine. So just I'll upload some practice problems with respect to the first set calculation. So one has to be very efficient enough in terms of first set calculation manually, first of all. Fine. So this was all about the first set calculation here. Now we are ready to take our first parser here. So we'll discuss the logistics of the first parser and simply we'll highlight the few important limitations of this parser. Because we have to highlight their limitations, and that obviously motivate us to go for further higher categories of the parser or much powerful categories of the parser here. Fine. So let's start with the first parser, that is the recursive descent parser, the first top-down parser. Fine. So we'll understand what exactly this guy is. Are there any limitations? Is it suffering from certain issues of backtracking or any other issues which he can't handle? Fine. So recursive descent parser, guys. So it's a top-down method of the syntax analysis in which one is going to design or execute certain set of recursive procedures which are going to be executed to parse the stream of tokens here. So from the lexical analysis, whatever we have got in the form of tokens, so that are going to be parsed using certain set of recursive procedures. And sometimes non-recursive as well. But overall, we said that it's a recursive here. So what are those functions? What are those procedures? It says a function is going to be associated with each non-terminal of the grammar. Yeah. So if there are 3 non-terminals for your grammar, so you have to write 3 procedures. It could be recursive, it could be non-recursive as well. Now, how we are going to build those procedures, that part will come shortly. So again, I'm saying the same thing, usually built from mutually recursive procedures or non-recursive equivalent, where each procedure usually implements one of the production rules of the grammar. So what does this line mean? That where each procedure implements one of the production rules of the grammar. So let's suppose this is one non-terminal and it is deriving some something like this. So it says, I'm going to write one procedure for this non-terminal A, in which the body of this procedure is going to capture the right-hand side specifications. This is what exactly it means, that where each procedure is going to capture, is going to implement one of the production rules of the grammar. And it is quite possible that my non-terminal A is also deriving some other production rules as well, some other right-hand side as well. Similarly, I'll also write the same recursive procedures for the, corresponding thing here. Fine. So let's try to visualize what we are talking right now formally here. So the goal is, we have one parser, give me the string of tokens which we have generated from the lexical analyzer, and give me this guy also, the rule, the grammar. Doesn't matter whether the grammar is not appropriate or it is appropriate, but at least give me the grammar. And I'll tell you whether I'll generate the parse tree for you, and I'll say that your stream of the tokens is conforming to the syntactical structure. And if they are not, then obviously I'll flag a syntactical error. I'll throw a simply error to you. So this is what exactly parser does, right? So I need these two things, and I'll use the capabilities of my underlying parser. So total of, I need three things. So now so how to develop the procedure, because that is the biggest question right now. How to develop the procedures for all non-terminals of the grammar? Because this is where I'm going to capture the right-hand side specifications of my grammar here. So it says, again, that develop a procedure for each non-terminal of the grammar rule. The procedure will capture all the specifications mentioned on the right-hand side of the grammar rule. And in each procedure, we are going to perform some match operation on hitting any token or any terminal symbol in the right-hand side of the grammar with the current token in the input that needs to be parsed here. Fine. So it's what it's saying, just try to visualize. Let's suppose we are passing this input stream right now. And it says that suppose your looking at pointer is pointing to this, and somewhere around, let's suppose this is the thing which we have captured here. So it says, as soon as if you hit this thing in the right hand side, so immediately you should perform a match operation. Match operation will match the current input symbol on the grammar with the current look ahead symbol on the on the input stream. And if it is matching, then I'll simply increment my look ahead pointer and I'll parse the rest of the input stream here. This is what it's saying here. What exactly match operation, match function is going to do here. Otherwise, if it is not matching, let's suppose if it is a B here and it is not matching, it will simply throw a syntactical error. And that makes sense. Fine, guys, everything up to this. So we are moving slowly towards the recursive descent parser here. So if match occurs, increment the look ahead pointer to the next input token, like I did here to the B. Otherwise, throw the syntax error, like I said. So syntax of procedure for writing each, for each non-terminal here. What exactly is the syntax? There is some benchmark, there is some default syntax, which generally one has to follow while implementing this. So it says, let's assume you have one non-terminal in your grammar, let's say as a generalized form A here. So we are writing the procedure for A here. So we'll say that we have to choose any of the production of A. Let's suppose there are n number of productions of A. So we have picked this production here, where all these symbols are the right-hand side symbols of the grammar of this, obviously the non-terminal A as well. So we'll go into a loop for I equals to 1 up to k here, because we have this much number of symbols. And if we'll say if x, any of these x is a non-terminal, xi is a non-terminal, then I will simply say that again call that procedure xi. Fine. Now this xi, remember, I mean, its value could be either A, its value could be any other non-terminal also. So if it is A, that means it is becoming a recursive procedure, and if it is a B, that means it is becoming a non-recursive procedure. So it says if you encounter the non-terminal symbol on the right-hand side, you immediately call that procedure in that function itself. You need not to do anything else. Fine, guys? However, in the else part, if it is not a non-terminal, that means if it is a terminal, if it is it is a token. So if xi, any of these xi's equals the current input symbol A, I mean any token, any terminal symbol, then in that case, like I said earlier, I just need to increment my lookahead pointer from the input stream, which I am going to parse. Let's say is again something ABA. So I'll just focus on the next stream here. Fine. So otherwise, if it is not happening, then I'll simply throw an error. So I hope all of you are able to visualize what we are going to do right now for some specific production rules. And the question is, if I'm doing this, am I able to parse any random input stream? The answer is yes. So parser is saying I am powerful if you will write the recursive or non-recursive procedures. So based on some proper sequence, I will definitely parse your input stream. And what do you mean by parsing the input stream? That I'll tell you whether it is syntactically correct or incorrect. And if it is correct, then I'll generate the parse tree. Otherwise, I'll simply throw an syntactical error. Fine, guys. So let us see now. It's a high time that we should pick one simpler example and let's try to implement this parser here. And once we have developed that parser, we'll take one input stream and we'll say how it is going to parse that particular thing, because that is the exact goal here, right? Our goal is to not just construct the parser or implement the parser. We have to make sure whether the current input stream or any input stream are going to be parsed by this parser or not. So guys, it's a very simpler example at the first go. So this is the form of the grammar where E and E prime are non-terminal symbol. These are my tokens. These are my production rules. And where E is my start symbol of the grammar. And it says that just develop the recursive descent parser and parse the following this input, which I am saying beforehand, this is a valid input. Yeah. So I plus I followed by a dollar sign. So dollar indicates the end, the end of the input stream of the tokens here. That parsing is completed now. Fine, guys. So as I said, we have to generate the recursive descent parser here. So this is the grammar. This is the input stream which I am supposed to parse. And let's now implement the recursive descent parser. So I have to start with the very first main function here. And in main function, I have to first invoke the start symbol of the grammar. Let's see. As of now, we know that E is the start symbol of the grammar here. Fine. So when I did this, let's ignore this much part right now. Fine. We'll come back here. So we'll say, as soon as I invoke this start symbol of the grammar, so as I said, we have two non-terminals of the grammar. So that means I have to write down two separate procedures for these two non-terminals of the grammar. So let me do for first E here, because since I have already invoked the start symbol of the grammar here. So the same thing here. So as per the rule. So it says, now if lookahead is equivalent to this I symbol here. Fine, because the first symbol, which is deriving by the right-hand side of the E, is nothing but E prime here. Fine. And you can also replace this complete statement by invoking the first set procedure. So you can see if lookahead is equivalent to first of E here or either E prime here. So what it's saying that, right now, is this guy is matching with this? This is what it's checking here, right? If it is equivalent to the lookahead, so my lookahead is this. The current pointer which I'm going to pass, the current input. So if it is this, then immediately I should invoke the match procedure. I mean, so match procedure, what will it do? It will simply perform a match operation. I mean, simply compare this guy with this guy, and if it is matching, then it will simply increment this lookahead pointer to the next input symbol here, to the next token here, because this is already passed now. Fine. So we'll see the match definition of this particular thing very shortly. Now, what is the next thing? As I said, as per the rule, because next symbol is a non-terminal symbol, so I, instead of performing a match operation, I just call itself, that is E prime here, and I just close it. So what exactly we have done? We have captured all the right-hand side specifications of the grammar here. Fine. Similarly, okay, let's see first the definition of the match, which I said to you. So match is going to just perform a match operation. So here my T is storing in this particular I here. So I'm saying if my lookahead symbol is equivalent to T, that means I should simply get the next token, and here my lookahead should point to lookahead pointer. So that's where I said now my lookahead pointer is pointing to plus. So this statement is saying just advance your, I mean, simply increment your lookahead pointer to the next input symbol. Otherwise, if it is not matching, I mean, this guy is false, then I should simply throw an error. Right? Now, the rest of the procedure, because I have to also invoke this, I have to also capture this. And remember, this is taking two different specifications here. So let me capture first this. So it says again, if my lookahead symbol, if my lookahead pointer is equivalent to first of E dash or simply plus itself, because assuming I have already evaluated this, then obviously I'll invoke the match procedure with respect to plus. And this is the definition of the match here. And rest, I'll say, again, perform a match operation with next token, that is I here. Then again, I'll go back here and I'll increment my lookahead pointer. Fine, guys. And lastly, again, I'll recursively call E dash again one more time, because this is a non-terminal here. Fine. And else, because this is also another specification of the E dash, which is deriving nothing, the epsilon symbol. So I'll simply say return null here. Fine. So this is where we end up. Fine, guys, any question up to this point? So I'll say right now, this is how I captured here. Now I go back, and let's suppose the input stream has been tokenized properly, and my input pointer is somewhere at the dollar point. So that's where we came back now. I mean, assuming we are using the recursion stack. So if my lookahead pointer is now pointing to the dollar symbol, so I'll say printf parsing is successful. So I am expecting certain questions from you guys. If you have any, please let me know. Guys, any questions till now? Any comment, any feedback, anything? Fine.
So
Yes.
so
Yes.
in the procedure for E dash,
Yes.
after if look ahead equals plus sign, we haven't forwarded the look ahead to I. So how will it match with I?
If lookahead equals to plus, right? So increment operation is already pointed by the match operation.
Okay, I didn't see that. Thank you, sir.
Hmm. So this part I am not going to take right now, because right now we have just developed the parser. Now we have to see how this parser is going to work, because ultimate goal is that I need to parse this input stream right now. Fine. So let me do that. So if my parser is simply implementing, I mean, generating the parse tree, that means I'm saying that this is a valid stream of tokens here. So let me show with this arrow that right now my input, my lookahead pointer is pointing to the first token here, that is I. Fine. And let me I'll start with the main function, and I'll say that let me introduce, let's say, first stack here, and I'll say, because these are some of the recursive procedures, so I'm saying for on the first place I'm invoking the main procedure, let's say. So as soon as I invoke the main, I immediately came across one more function, that is E here. Fine. So E, after invoking the E, I should say that now this is my parse tree is looking right now, because I have just captured the specifications here. So what I'm going to do, what I'm doing right now, I'm just trying to mimic the construction of the parse tree with the help of this implementation of the parser here. Fine. So as of now, we did this much part, and my parse tree is something looking like this. I mean, with the start symbol at the root node. Now my pointer is shifting from here to here. So I'll immediately check, sorry, if my lookahead pointer, that means this guy, is equivalent to this I symbol. It is, right? Fortunately. So I'll say, I'll invoke the match procedure I, which will take me here. Fine. And it'll say, now my I is this, and obviously this is my, and this is my lookahead pointer, that is I is equivalent to I. So that means this has been matched. And my job has not been yet completed, because I have to increment my lookahead pointer to the next thing, which has been done by this line here. So my current lookahead is now plus here. I'll come back, and next line is saying invoke the procedure, that is E dash here. So what I did, I just execute the right-hand side specifications of this particular rule, that is E here. So let me construct the tree, because this is matched and this has been also invoked here. So right now my parse tree is something looking like this, and I have also invoked the procedure E dash. Fine, guys. And now my lookahead pointer is pointing to the plus, and my next in procedure which I'm supposed to invoke, that is E dash here. So let me go here. So I'll say now if my lookahead equal to plus, obviously it is plus, my lookahead is plus here. So I'll invoke the match operation. Now again, I do not need to repeat the same thing. So it obviously will get matched, plus is equivalent to plus. So immediately I'll increment my lookahead pointer to the next thing here. Fine. So I'll say till now my parse tree has been constructed like this. Similarly, now again, next line which I'm going to invoke is match of I. And my current lookahead pointer is pointing to the I here. So I'll say, then again, this is now again I here, and this is again I, this is again I. So again, I'll increment my lookahead pointer to the dollar symbol here. And I'll say, I have also, I'm so sorry, this should not be expanded, this should be expanded. So I did this, I just simply captured this much part. And finally, this is a non-terminal, so I have to just execute as it is. Fine, guys. So again, one more time, I'm invoking this procedure E dash in my recursion stack. So remember, this is not something extra stack. Consider this is a stack of the operating system. So you are not supposed to use some extra stack here. So again, I'm calling E dash. And right now my lookahead pointer is dollar. Unfortunately, this will not be evaluated. So this guy will evaluate, which is simply saying returning null. So I'll say, this is what I captured here. E is deriving epsilon. So this is returning, and E is also returning here. And my pointer will come back to here, which will say, if my lookahead pointer is equivalent to dollar, then obviously say that I have already constructed the parse tree. So this is successful. I mean, the parsing is successful. Fine, guys. Any question, any point, any? So what I did, I just mimicked the construction of the parse tree through this, well-defined parser here right now. Anything, guys? Everything fine? Should we proceed forward then? Okay. Yes.
Sir, could you explain how we could use first set instead of characters? Like,
so so here, as a part of development, you have to generate one function which actually captures which you need to automate the process of the first set calculation. So right now I could say you would have written like this here. So for that, you need to automate this process. This is what you exactly. So you need to capture all these specifications, which we have discussed in those 4 steps of the first set calculation. So that process needs to get automated.
Sir, but even if we have that process, like
Fine.
we suppose we have that process, and here we write look ahead equal to first of E.
Right.
Even in that case, we'll have to decide exactly which rule on the right hand side we'll have to expand now, because
Right. So what you are saying, this is actually the limitation of the recursive descent parser. Fine. What you are mentioning right now, that this is actually the main drawback of the recursive descent parser. That which production, which I should choose, that is still not clear. Because sometimes it is quite possible that I may come across such grammars. Let's see. Now, both are giving me this, right? Now, I don't know because first of A is also here and first of A is also here. So I don't know whether I should go for this procedure or this procedure. Is this your question or your was something different? Or are you talking about this question? I mean, something like this.
Yes, sir. The second
So
case. So
this can be easily resolved. So we have to store this set of tokens and we have to see the first set of tokens we are storing somewhere, and we'll see the look at pointer should match any of these. That's my job is getting done.
Sir, so like even after like we say that okay, look ahead is one of A, B, or C. Even
Correct.
after that, we'll have to check that if look ahead is A, I'll have to after matching A, I'll have to call the function for B. If look ahead is
So
small,
match, yes. So if A is matched, then obviously in the just below the line, you should have invoked this procedure. So your implementation part has to capture this B thing.
okay, thank you, sir.
Did I answer your question or it was something else?
No, sir, it was this only. Thank you.
Okay. So you have to write the piece of the code in such a way that should precisely capture the specifications on the right hand side in a sequential manner, like we did here. We did not swap this, right? Did we? If we'll obviously come across an error. I mean, even I should not say come across an error, my parser is wrong. Fine, student. I mean, whosoever has asked this.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Fine. So unintentionally, I have highlighted you one of the disadvantage. So let us see now what exactly is this thing here. So this is the parse tree which I have shown you, that how you can construct the parse tree with the help of the implementation of this parser here. Let us take few more examples quickly. I mean, recall the same grammar which we saw last time also. The grammar which captures the type information of the Pascal. So suppose if someone wants to write the recursive descent parser for it and it needs to scan this input. Fine. So, I mean, not the rocket science. He can simply do this thing here. So again, this is the grammar and this is the stream of the input. And assuming type is the start symbol, and these both guys are the non-terminals of the grammar. Fine. So one thing here is type is deriving simple or something, and similarly simple is deriving int, char, or nom.now. So you can imagine how many if and else's can come right now. Fine. So let's start quickly. I mean, the same thing. So we started with the main, we invoke the first start symbol of the grammar. We halt for some point here, and let me write down the definition of the type. So as a part of first step, the symbol is a non-terminal of the grammar. Fine, at the first place. So what should I do? I mean, this time, you see, instead of simply invoking the simple, my parser is becoming more efficient. My parser says, no, I'll not simply invoke the simple. I mean, by just writing as it is, as I did earlier. I'll say, first, let me check if my look ahead is equivalent to any of the first of simple. Fine, that makes sense to invoke this guy. Otherwise, why should I call this? Fine. So I invoke the simple, and now I have to move to the else part. If my look ahead is equivalent to this symbol, then I should perform the match operation. And also I should perform the match operation with the ID part here. This is what I captured, this thing and this thing up to this point. Otherwise, else part, if my look ahead is equivalent to this array symbol or the first of this or any of this, I mean, you can replace any of these, then I'll simply perform a match operation with the array. I'll simply perform a match operation with the open parenthesis. I'll simply invoke the procedure simple because simple is a non-terminal. Fine. And again, I'll perform a match operation with the close parenthesis. And off is again a token, is a terminal symbol. So I'll again perform a match operation with the off. And finally, I'll again invoke the type non-terminal here. I mean, the recursive in a recursive way. Otherwise, I'll simply stop by saying, oh, come on, I cannot handle this. Fine, guys. Similarly, I can go for the simple because this is another non-terminal of the grammar. So it is going to capture all the right-hand side specifications one by one. So it simply says, if my look ahead is equal to int, then I should simply perform a match operation with the int here. Match int, simply else, because this is the other guy, else if my look ahead is equivalent to char, so match char. Else if my look ahead symbol equals to num, that is the first token, then I should capture the complete specification. Match num, match dot dot, and match num. Otherwise, nothing. I mean, simply throw an error here. Fine, guys. Any question, anything which you feel that something is deviating from the previous one?
So can you please explain the importance of match function? Because we are already checking it, we can simply implement it.
Right. Understood. So here we are already matching. Point is absolutely correct. But just as a part of separate procedure, because our goal is to not just match, our goal is to also advance the look ahead pointer to the next token. So that part we are handling differently. If you are not supposed to, you can immediately write after that next token is, I mean, you can use the get char and simply point the look ahead pointer to that. This is the only thing. Is this fine?
Fine, thank you.
So match operation, we are already doing that. And we are simply doing it in a redundant manner in the match operation. But we are doing one more thing, that we are also incrementing the look ahead point. Any other thing, guys, up to this? And again, if we have to pass this input, use the same procedure which I have used earlier, use some recursion stack, and you will come across. So this is the match operation which we did earlier. So you will come across that your parse tree is constructing like this, step by step. Finally, this. Fine, guys, up to this point. Yes, please, anything?
Excuse me, sir. Sir, I want to ask, like, we have done, manually we have constructed the parse tree, but how will the our compiler construct parse tree? Like,
so,
what will be the representation of a parse tree?
Yeah, understood. So, like I told you earlier in the introductory session, parse tree generation has to be, again, automated using the concept of the data structure tree here. So this has to be linked with the parsing here. That is the thing you have to do, because parser is not going to. This is what I have shown you in just trying to mimic the procedure. But actually, you have to introduce one more data structure, let's say tree, and you have to handle this.
Okay, sir.
Fine. Is it relevant? Because this is the only way which we do as a part of, the earlier sessions as well. So we have to construct one more data structure for this.
Okay, sir.
Okay, guys. So now we have seen sufficient examples how to implement this parser here. Now let us highlight what are the weak points of this, because this is not something which people usually use, in the form of parsing here. So that means if I'm stating this line, so we have to highlight the limitations of it. And already I have highlighted one based on some recent comment. So issues in this first category of the top-down parser. So before asking, I should straightforwardly show you first of all. Consider a grammar with two productions in this form. And one is my X is deriving something this, gamma 1, and my similar non-terminal is deriving this thing here. So suppose if my first of gamma 1 and first of gamma 2 is not equivalent to phi here. That means there exists some common tokens here in both the sets. Fine, guys. So say A is the common terminal symbol here. So how will I handle this? I mean, using the recursive descent parser, guys. This is a limitation because recursive parser doesn't know, because recursive parser says, oh, come on, its first token is also A and its first token is also A. And unfortunately, my lookahead pointer is also pointing to A. So should I invoke this or this? Come on, guys. Any responses? Understood the problem, guys, at least?
Yes,
Any
sir.
response? Yes. So any responses? How will I handle this? I mean, how will parser handle this limitation? Come on, guys. At least one voice from your side. Doesn't matter relevant or irrelevant.
Sir, check the next terminal.
I mean, how will I go for next terminal? Because first I have to decide which procedure I should invoke. So that means what you are saying,
Sir,
unfortunately.
see the both rules which have this
So,
like.
right, absolutely correct. So what you are saying that I have to introduce sometimes backtracking in the recursive descent parsing, isn't it? Can I say right this? So because backtracking is something which is very expensive for me. But recursive descent parser says that as long as you are giving me correct form of the grammar, I can assure you that backtracking will not come. But if you give me such form of the grammars, then you have to introduce the concept of the backtracking. Suppose I'll execute this function and somehow I realize that this is not parsing my correct input and I'll do this, then I'll realize, okay, this will be parsed. So what I'm doing here is backtracking here. So function corresponding to X will not know which procedure to use for this input token, let's say alpha. So that means I'm using recursive descent parsing with the backtracking concept here. So to support the backtracking, all production should be tried in some order. That means all those X's in some order. Failure for some production implies, doesn't imply that it is hitting some error here. So it says trace all the productions, and if all the productions are reporting an error, then only you should flag an error. When other rules are not there. Fine, guys. So you can see this is the weakest form of the parser, which just because introducing the first set, it is some likely deviating from the backtracking as long as you are giving him the backtrack free grammar, let's say at this point, the right form of the grammar. But if you are not giving him the right form of the grammar, he will always support backtracking here, which is obviously very expensive, which I said to you, our parser is not going to implement using the concept of a backtracking. I need some powerful parsers, doesn't matter what the form of the grammar is, I'll always end up in unambiguous parsing here. So this is the first limitation, guys. Any other limitation, guys? Any other which you can highlight right now?
Sir, it may lead to stack overflow as well if so many recursive calls are there.
Let us take this issue as a part of implementation. Let us take any other with respect to the grammar, form of the grammar, as I said. Any issue with respect to the form of the grammar, the form of the rule. Okay, no one. So let's take it quickly because time is almost over. Guys, there is a concept which you may or may not aware, left recursive grammar, the left recursion. So it says if you are giving the left recursive grammar to the recursive descent parser, I mean, you are making the life hell for him. I mean, making simply life hell for this recursive descent parser. Because the recursive descent parser says that I am going to loop forever for the following productions of the form like this. I mean, I'll say these productions. A is deriving, let's say, A alpha. And why it is left recursive? Because you can see on the left hand side, I have the same non-terminal, which, on the right hand side, I have the same non-terminal, which is on the left hand side. And obviously, if I'm going to expand, if I'm going to construct the parse tree for this is always going to expand on the this left hand side here. So can still someone highlight what exactly is the problem here? Suppose if someone is writing the recursive descent procedure for it. So I'll say I'll invoke this, I'll again invoke this, and I'll simply, let's say, match is a alpha is a set of tokens. So it will keep on re-looping again and again. So again, guys, the problem is not with the parser. The parser says, give me the correct form of the grammar. Come on, what have you given me right now? I'm just re-looping myself again. So parser says, this is not something job for me. You just give me the correct form of the grammar here. Fine. So A is deriving A alpha. So because of this is becoming left recursive, and I have another beta, which could be any string of terminals and non-terminals. So left recursion can be removed by rewriting the grammar as. And the same set of the strings could be generated by the same grammar here, by these two different grammar here. So with respect to this grammar now, which is left recursive, we have this alternate representation, which is non-left recursive. So A is deriving, bring beta here, bring new non-terminal symbol A prime. It could be any other name. And where my definition of A prime is alpha, A prime, or epsilon here. And both are ensuring the same set of the strings. So now it says, the recursive descent parser says, oh, come on, now I can handle this. Because this is not going to something which is going to be, creating a problem for me. Fine, guys, understood the second limitation. So here, you can see, this is a left recursive where you can see my whole parse tree is stretching in the left-hand side. It is simply expanding here. But here you can see similarly on the opposite. But I could have simply end up also. So these two are equivalent form of the grammar, but one is left recursive and the another one is a non-left recursive. Fine, guys, understood these two important issues. And there are some other issues as well, which actually motivate us to move away from this first category of the top-down parser and pick up some powerful category of the parsers here. Fine, guys. Let's look at simpler example. This is completely a left recursive grammar, because you can see if this is my A, this is my A, and this is my complete alpha plus and T, and this is my beta here. Similarly, this is my small a, single A, and this is my single A. This is my complete alpha, and this is my beta. And there is no problem with this. So I have to introduce two different forms for these two different non-terminals here. So what I did, just because of that rule, beta A dash, and where my A dash should be alpha A dash or epsilon here. So here my beta is T, and I introduce here non-terminal in place of A dash, I wrote E dash here, where E dash is alpha, which is again this plus and T, so plus and T followed by a new non-terminal E prime, and or epsilon here. Similarly for T, so T is again my beta followed by a new non-terminal, that is T prime, and where T prime is alpha, that is star F new non-terminal, and this will remain same. Now this new form of the grammar, which will say non-left recursive grammar. So left recursion is a problem for the recursive descent parser here, and I should say for the top-down parsers here. But left recursion is not a problem for bottom-up parser. Bottom-up parser says, oh, come on, give me any junk form of the grammar. I'll parse it. I'm much more powerful and I'm more acceptable in the real world. Fine, guys, let's stop here. And now you can ask me any question up to this point. Yes, guys, I'm ready to take your questions. Any questions up to this point? So I'm stopped. I have stopped here.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, this slide only, this current slide, where we are converting the grammar from left recursive to non-left recursive. Sir, do we is there a fixed procedure on how to do it, or just we have to visualize it a bit?
So obviously there is a procedure. You have to check for the first non-terminal on the left-hand side and immediate first non-terminal on the right-hand side. Fine, like I did here.
Yes, sir.
Fine.
Yes, sir.
Is this a valid answer? I mean, what you were asking? So this
Yes,
is the
sir,
manual way of checking.
No, sir. I am saying, it is easy to identify which which rule is left recursive, because the same non-terminal is coming at the first point.
Correct.
But how to convert it into a non-left recursive? If the left one is given, how to make the right grammar? Is there a fixed procedure, or do we have to visualize?
So fixed procedure is this. This is the equivalent representation I just showed you. This is the fixed procedure.
Okay, sir.
Are you finding this relevant? Because what you are, asking me, my response to this is the fixed procedure. And this fixed procedure will ensure that only the form of the grammar has been changed, but the actual grammar is not changed. I mean, the strings are same.
Okay, sir. Got
Fine.
it.
Yeah.
Fine. Thank you.
Any other comment, guys? Any other question? Okay, guys, then I'm stopping here then. Thank you for joining, guys.